Of course, you remember that the first one centers around Timothée Chalamet's Paul Atreides, who had traveled to the dangerous desert planet of Arrakis to try and ensure the future of his people. As the movie went on, the enemies to Paul's family, House Harkonnen, successfully invaded and conquered Arrakis and took over production of the planet's key resource, spice, with Dave Bautista's Rabban Harkonnen being put in charge. Meanwhile, having lost his father and many others to the invasion, Paul and his mother encountered a Fremen tribe in the deep desert and finally met Zendaya's Chani in the flesh instead of just in visions. And in order to fulfill his father's goal of bringing peace to Arrakis, Paul joined up with the Fremen to try and take down House Harkonnen together. And that brings us to part 2, which, if you're a stickler for these kinds of things, will technically cover more like the final third of the book, not the final half. Regardless, we've been telling you for a while that if there was one knock on the first movie, it's that it didn't have enough action, something that is supposed to be different this time around. In fact, Denis Villeneuve has referred to part 2 as an epic war movie to part 1's more contemplative feel. He also said during a press conference in South Korea, as reported by Variety, that part 2 is much better and more alive than part 1, and enough said, I guess. Of course, some of that action will come via the clash between Paul and the Fremen versus House Harkonnen. But most fans of the book know that the book actually uses a couple of time jumps to get ahead and ultimately leaves what would be some pretty action-heavy stuff to the imagination. So perhaps Denis will actually use those moments to give us more action and maybe even introduce some more super weird characters from the book. I mean, it was actually just confirmed that Anya Taylor-Joy makes a cameo in this film. And speaking of characters, we're gonna get to know Chani better this time around. Plus, there's a pretty big one being introduced in Padishah Emperor Shaddam IV, whose presence will add a bit more political drama to the mix. Let's talk about the Emperor and some other fresh faces joining the fray. So, Emperor Shaddam IV, who is essentially like the regional manager showing up to the local branch of an office to set things straight in this movie, is played by none other than Christopher Walken. I mean, this is kind of a role Walken was born to play, considering the song that he famously starred in the music video for in 2001, Fatboy Slim's Weapon of Choice, has more than one Dune reference in it. That is like honestly one of my favorite music videos of all time. Please Google it later if you have not seen it. Playing the Emperor's daughter, Princess Irulan, is Florence Pugh in a role that was originally offered to Emma Roberts, but she had scheduling conflicts. Leah Seydoux is playing Lady Margot Fenring, a friend of the Emperor on an important mission. Now, Villeneuve said this role is a bit different than what fans know from the novel, describing her as a kind of like a secret agent and full of surprises, while not confirming if she is good or bad. So Austin Butler of Elvis fame was cast as Feyd-Rautha Harkonnen, basically a young bad guy with big aspirations as the House Harkonnen successor, and he's gonna be a problem for Paul and friends. My biggest question is, will his Elvis accent make it into the movie? No, I'm kidding. We love you, Austin, Elvis or not. And I just have to mention, because I love Tim Blake so much, that Tim Blake Nelson was cast in this film in an undisclosed role, and he was just so great as Looking Glass in HBO's Watchmen. Now, because this movie is looking to be such an epic offering, especially visually, it's worth noting that this is the first film in the franchise to be filmed entirely for IMAX, using a little taller aspect ratio to capture even more of the action. So simply put, my friends, to truly enjoy this movie as its creators are intending, go see it in IMAX and maybe see it twice for good measure. Okay, so obviously we spent a lot of time talking about Dune Part 1 and 2, but there are rumors out there of a trilogy, so let's address that now. Denis Villeneuve, who also co-wrote these two Dune films, has shown an interest in making it a trilogy by adapting the book Dune Messiah into a movie as well. He said he likes that the book was written in reaction to people thinking that Paul Atreides was a hero after reading Dune, which was not Frank Herbert or Villeneuve's intention. Of course, this happening will depend on a couple of things. If Dune Part 2 is successful, obvi, and if Denis is still feeling it after taking a nice little break from Arrakis. Understandably so. I mean, those sandworms can be muy problematic. Just so you know, there's also a series, Dune the Sisterhood, which has been in development at Max for a while now, and would bring viewers a story set 10,000 years before Paul's birth. So there's a lot of Dune coming at us, but let's just get through Part 2 for now. All right, my friends, that is everything you need to know before you go see Dune Part 2 when it opens on March 1st. Scan this QR code to get your tickets. I promise you will not be disappointed. See it in IMAX.